Welcome to another video where I transform old clothes I don't want to wear into something completely different. This is the perfect way to overcome my shopping problem. My bank account isn't trembling and I feel accomplished. This fabric gives me Reformation dress vibes, so I decided to convert this into a nice flowy dress with puffy sleeves, some ruching somewhere, and a nice fitted bodice. First of all, I removed the waistband and the elastic in it. Then I prepped up the pants by ripping out the center seams. The front crotch seam is ripped up as well, but the back seam is kept intact. I don't know why it is, but it is. In my past projects, I could never draft a bodice perfectly. I always traced clothes that fit me already, but this time I wanted a nice princess seam bodice. I have linked the video that helped me construct this bodice. I actually created the bodice on a scrap fabric. This is my test bodice to check if it actually fits me because I don't want any surprises. And it turned out great. The bodice has a total of 4 parts in the front. There is no back part to this bodice. And I traced and cut out all the front bodice parts on my fabric, and I left out a lot of seam allowance. When I had just started out sewing, I always forgot to leave seam allowance. As a result, all of my clothes ended up being way too tight for me. And now I leave out a lot of seam allowance. The bodice that I had made the scrap fabric from, the test bodice, had a lower neckline and I wanted a neckline that was higher up. So I traced the fabric keeping that in mind. I have cut the left front bodice pieces and cut out identical mirror images of them to get the right bodice pieces. Once I had them all cut, I placed the respective pieces right sides together and stitched along the curve. The left and the right parts would be stitched together at the center. I tried it on, it was a bit loose. See, that's what happens when you leave a lot of seam allowance but don't stitch along the seam allowance line because you didn't make that in the first place. I continued to take measurements for the back piece. The back would be made out of 2 parts, the left and the right, and the zip would be placed right in the middle. Even though I took the back parts measurements, I wasn't quite sure it would turn out right. I mean, logically speaking, they would have turned out right. It was just my brain being anxious for no reason at all. I tried to convince it, but gave in to his demands of using the front piece to trace the back pieces. The front and the back piece would kind of have the same neckline. The height of the back piece would be more than that of the front piece. So I folded the fabric in half, placed the folded front piece on it, and started tracing the half of the back part, leaving some seam allowance, or actually a lot of it. I wasn't happy with the back piece, it looked too big, so I lowered the back neck a bit. I place the front and the back pieces together. They are not identical in length because the back piece has some more fabric for stitching in the zipper. I stitched the pieces at the sides to finish off the bodice. Now I'm going to seam rip the center seam at the back so I can place the zipper there. The center seam was always at the center of the back piece. I forgot to mention that earlier. I did not cut two separate back pieces because the fabric is slippery, and this way it is just very easy to work with. To make the bottom part of the dress, which is nothing but a skirt, I opened up my fabric. This is basically the opened up legs of the pant. I folded them in half once and then folded them in half again. We now have divided the skirt into 4 quarters for symmetry purposes. From the bottom, I marked how long I wanted the length to be, and at the top part of the skirt, which would be at my waist, I marked my waist measurement divided by 4 plus some seam allowance. I cut the skirt at the waist and then diagonally cut it till it reaches the bottom corner. So here I have 2 trapeziums. One is the front side and other is the back side. I stitched them both together to form the complete skirt. And this is what I got. Apparently the diagonals of the trapezium were too much diagonal, as in I needed to shorten the width at the bottom. Also, I had stitched them wrong sides together, making my stitching lines visible. Always stitch your pieces right sides together, always. I seam ripped the entire thing and drew a more inclined, a diagonal that minimizes the bottom width of my skirt. I have to join the bottom skirt and the bodice together. Make sure that the center lines match, the sides match, and basically everything matches. Pin and stitch them right sides together. Everything looks good so far. I decided to put the invisible zipper in at this point. I wanted it to be an invisible zipper because it just gives out a more professional and polished look to the garment. And generally when I do projects at home, they aren't so much polished. I mean, I don't even serge them. I don't even cut out the raw edges when they are popping out somewhere. I don't even cut out the thread when I'm stitching on the fabric. So yeah, this time I just wanted to be more neat and clean, and I wanted everything to be invisible and polished and proper. So before putting in the invisible zipper, I had hemmed the top of the back neckline. I tried inserting the zipper, but it didn't turn out to be very invisible. I ripped it out and inserted it multiple times, but with the same results. So I decided to make the sleeves, and I'll come back to the zipper later. The sleeves would be placed over my arm and under my arm, obviously, and they would be stitched on the front bodice part, where the bodice goes under my arm, and the bodice or neckline part that is a bit inclined, the V part of the neckline, but half of the V part of the neckline, not the whole V of the neckline. Yeah, drafting this sleeve pattern was really tricky. It wasn't your plain old sleeve. I mean, even if it was, I would have struggled. I just can't do sleeves. I tried draping some fabric on my sleeve, inspected if I could somehow make sense of the shape, but that didn't work. I tried to search online and draft a pattern for I tried to search online and tried to draft a pattern for raglan sleeves, but the math was just too complicated. Finally, I reached a point where I was too exhausted, mentally and physically. My back gave out. I started feeling nauseous for some reason. This is when I took a top that fits me well, placed the bodice on it, took some fabric, placed it on the bodice and the top, and started tracing out the sleeves. I literally just cut out the front part of the sleeve by visually analyzing the area that needs to be covered. I did the same for the back piece, and the pieces look like organs. The right ones literally look like lungs. I placed the lung-shaped one on the other one and stitched along the curved area. I stitched these sleeves onto my bodice. The result actually wasn't that bad. I thought it was gonna be a flop show. They were a bit tight around my arms, armhole, and they were uneven in length. At the shoulder, they were very loose, so I decided to put an elastic at the shoulder. I have to fix the back part, it's super loose. I would cut the bottom of the sleeves to make them more even and wide enough so that they aren't super tight. I inserted the elastic on the shoulder part, and now I would cut and hem the bottom of the sleeves. Okay, back to the zipper. I ripped out the previously sewn zipper, cut the back part a bit because it was too big. I ironed the whole thing out for a cleaner look. Now take your zipper and place it on your fabric such that the grooves are facing inside. Open it up and just focus on the left side for now. Flip the zipper so that the groove is facing towards you and place the grooves on the crease of your fabric. The crease on your fabric must run right through the center of your back piece. Pin the zipper in place. If you fold the zipper in, then you will see that you can only see the grooves and they go in when you close the zipper, and now everything's invisible. When it comes to stitching, try using an invisible zipper foot. If you don't have that, you can use a regular zipper foot. I have a regular zipper foot. You want to place the needle in the left side of the foot when you're stitching the left side of the zipper. I did this wrong the first time. I was using the left foot for the right side and the right foot for the left side, and everything was a mess. Once you have set this up, you want to start stitching very, very close to the zipper. You may want to stitch it a few times, like I did, just to get as close to the zipper grooves as possible. Just don't stitch on the grooves. I did the right side too. And after that, I realized one big thing that was about to change everything. My zipper was in fact a regular zipper and not an invisible one. To forget just how disappointed I was, I went ahead and made a cute little bow that would go at the center of my neckline. I folded in some fabric, cut a long strip of it, stitched along the raw edge, and flipped it inside out using a safety pin. Then I made a cute bow out of it, placed it in the center, and stitched it onto my bodice. And this is how the final product looks. I am very impressed. I love this dress. This dress gives me all those summery vibes that I missed this summer. And even though the zipper isn't as invisible, it still does the job. I mean, it's not that bad. You can barely see it's in there. I mean, even if you can see it, just pretend it's not there, okay? I am so very happy with the neckline, the bow. The length is great, the bodice turned out really great, and it's just fitted nice and flowy at the same time. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you try making something similar to this. Take some inspiration from what I did and have a nice time. Thank you for watching. Bye.